Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is just going to be an update on the Vaxee E1. I know that I did not have an EC2 CW at the time of my original video. I gave you guys a comparison between the E1 and the outset, both Ergo Mice and Vaxee's line. But I do have an EC2 now. I've done some A and B testing, and there are definitely minimal differences between the Vaxee mouse and the EC2 CW. And, you know, rightfully so. Zanver from Vaxee is one of the original designers of the EC2, and it's just a glorious shape. It is a shape that has been used by pros upon pros upon pros for tack shooters and games across many titles and different play styles. And it's just something that's always been fabled as being one of the best ergos on the market. Now, the E1 is definitely, I think, a change for the right direction. It is a little less long comparatively to the EC2 CW. But when you really start comparing these two mice side by side, you know, the people who think weight don't make that big of a difference, I kind of do believe that, but the weight now has to be in a reasonable bracket. And when you look at the EC2 at 77 grams compared to my E1 at 59 grams with dots, the weight and weight balance are just so far apart that it would be very hard to recommend the EC2 CW in comparison to the E1. I think the change to the length of the mouse does make a difference to me in terms of the width and height feel as well. And I know Vaxee mentioned that the height and the width really didn't change amongst the mice, but I think the way I grip it and the way the Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 are bucketed, it just feels smaller than the EC2 when you start going back and forth. That could be a variable of that weight and weight balance as well, throwing you off in how you generally feel about the mouse. But the E1 just feels so far apart between the EC2 in terms of that in-game performance feel. I just feel so much more agile in the hand. When I am tracking people in Apex and I'm whipping my mouse around and trying to quick track people and then swap targets, it is so much easier on the Vaxee E1, and even comparing it to the G Pro Superlight Dex because of those size differences and that extra in-hand maneuverability, that extra agility with that great weight and weight balance, it really just makes a league of a difference in terms of how I am playing consistently, how aggressive I am playing, and how good I'm playing. I think it's a mouse paired with the Vaxee PC, which I'll get into later. I'm just playing at my top tier level. I feel really good. I feel really confident in my play on the Vaxee E1. Now, A and B testing it again to the Zowie EC2 CW, it would be just so hard to recommend the EC2 CW with the E1 existing on the market with a better sensor, better click feel, and better click infrastructure. I mean, you compare the clicks between these two mice. The Zowie feels more hollow, whereas the Vaxee feels more tactile and more responsive, more crisp, faster. The clicks feel more consistent from the left of the button all the way to the right of the button, the bottom of the button all the way to the top of the button. Everything just feels like such a crisper experience on the E1 in comparison to the EC2 CW. Now, I don't think I could say that this gets closer to an EC3, but there's just something about it that feels, in essence, smaller and more agile than the EC2 CW. Just the overall experience. I think it has a better coding. I think it has better clicks and a better click infrastructure, weight and weight balance, and just overall performance feel. They've really done a good job. If you loved the EC2, I think the E1 just takes it and puts it 6 feet under. It's going to be interesting how Zowie responds with the difference in feel now that the E1, I think, is just going to take the cake for a lot of people when you're talking about that shape and ergo spot on the market. It's just going to be hard to beat unless they make some very serious and significant changes. The Vaxee PC for me is just such a good mouse pad, and the reason why is because it is a textured pad, but it's not abrasive. And that texture, when you are gliding with skates on the pad, it kind of gives you that subconscious awareness of where your mouse is on the pad as you are aiming, kind of how far you're going, how short you're going. And I do think that, for at least me, that has an impact indirectly on my gameplay. But the best thing about the Vaxee PC is, one, it doesn't have stitch edges. I don't have to worry about ever getting poked by a little piece of fabric sticking out of the stitching. I don't have to worry about hairs getting pulled out, etc. And the lipped edges really do just feel good. So when I'm using it on my desk, I don't feel like I'm hitting into anything like stitching or a pad. The main thing, though, is the consistency on this pad. It is one of the most consistent pads in terms of how that speed feels. If I'm going in figure eights, the pad just doesn't feel like it is making my mouse go a different speed in any direction. If I'm going diagonally, vertically, horizontally, the speed of the textile is exceptionally consistent, and I think that's because of the way that it has been woven. The pad does have a more firm thickness, so the consistency of the speed is very good in that regard as well, and the padding is quite elastic, so it rebounds very quickly if you ever dig in. For me, it's just a very consistent pad that mixed with a agile mouse that I have total control over in terms of an ergonomic shape on the market right now. For track-heavy games, it's just the perfect pairing. I think anybody who's overlooking the Vaxee PC, do yourself a favor, at least try the textile once, because I think it is just way better than something like a Hayate Atsu, and I think it's one of the best, speedier feeling pads on the market. I don't think it's a full-blown, outrageous speed pad, but I think it is definitely like a few ticks past balanced, and it just feels really good. If you are using certain skates or your mouse is a little bit heavier, it does get a little bit closer to the balance side with, let's say, default skates on an EC2 and that additional weight. But again, it just feels quite effortless on dynamic, and static movements are like you can stop on a dime on this pad, but they're nice, open, and airy. So I just think it right now for me is one of the best pads on the market. I've been using it. I've been using the heck out of it for 5 or 6 weeks. You guys can see some stains on it. Doesn't affect the surface feel or the speed at all. I just don't have any slow spots. So I think it's going to be a very consistent textile, one that holds up pretty well. And again, just the lipped edges here and the way that it has been molded without having any fraying on the edges, just an exceptional cloth pad if you are still using cloth as opposed to glass. This is the other pad. This is a Vaxee PD. I wasn't really able to talk about this yet because they hadn't officially announced it or released it. But the Vaxee PD is basically a PA with a very firm base. This thing feels like a hard pad. That is how firm it is. It has those lipped edges. It is 5 millimeters long. And the nice thing about the lipped edges, again, you're not running your hand into anything. Your arm just kind of like flows onto the pad. And not having those stitched edges, again, nothing poking out at you, nothing grabbing onto your hairs, etc. This pad is a little bit different in terms of its base. You can see it has that kind of glossy, that mirrored base. This thing just sticks to your desk and it will not move at all unless you peel it off. So it's got a really nice base, and if you like firm bases that are exceptionally consistent and in terms of speed and glide, it definitely provides that. Now the PD, again, is using that same textile as a PA, but because of that firmness, it will feel a little bit faster. Again, depending on your skates, like the PE and the PA, it can feel closer to balanced depending on the weight of the mouse as well as the skates. But with the Tiger Ice V2 dots, the mouse can be quite speedy. So if you liked the PA, but you want those lipped edges, you want it a little bit higher, and you want a really firm, consistent base, definitely check out the PD. I think what Vaxee is doing, they are producing really good products. They're improving upon older products. They're releasing products with those new improvements. I think it's definitely one of the best companies right now on the market. And for me, again, moving into the future, I'm going to be using still the Maya X for my symmetrical, and I'm going to be using the E1 for my ergo on my Vaxee PC. That's what I'm using right now, guys, and I hope it helped. I know it was a little bit fast, a little bit on the shorter side. I just wanted to update you guys on a few of those things. The wind outside and the trees are rocking. I'm going to end this here, guys. Everyone stay safe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.